In the heart of downtown Chicago, where the aroma of coffee mingles with the morning rush, there's a small diner that's been serving comfort food for over 3 decades. It's the kind of place where the regulars know each other by name, where the coffee cups are never empty, and where life's most beautiful stories unfold over plates of warm pancakes and crispy bacon. For the past 5 years, every Tuesday and Thursday morning, Table 7 has belonged to Mr. Thompson, an elderly retired teacher who lost the use of his legs after a severe stroke. At 83, his silver hair and kind eyes tell stories of a life well lived, though these days, getting through each meal requires assistance. That's where Sarah, a waitress with a heart of gold, enters the picture. Sarah isn't just any server. Her gentle hands steady Mr. Thompson's coffee cup when his tremors act up. She cuts his pancakes into perfect bite-sized pieces without being asked, and somehow always knows when he needs his water refilled before he realizes it himself. But what makes their story extraordinary isn't just her attentiveness. It's the genuine friendship that blossomed between two souls who might never have crossed paths otherwise. She treats me like I'm her own father, Mr. Thompson often tells other regulars, his voice filled with emotion. In all my years of teaching, I've never met someone with such a pure heart. What Mr. Thompson doesn't know is that Sarah, a single mother of two, works double shifts to put herself through nursing school, inspired by caring for customers like him. Their routine remained unchanged for years, Sarah serving breakfast with a smile, sharing stories about her children's adventures, and Mr. Thompson offering wisdom from his teaching days. Other customers would watch their interactions with warm hearts, witnessing something increasingly rare in our fast-paced world, genuine human connection. But on an ordinary Tuesday morning, everything changed. Mr. Thompson arrived at his usual time, but something was different. His weathered hands clutched an envelope, and his eyes sparkled with anticipation. The other regulars noticed an unusual energy in the air, like the calm before a beautiful storm. What happened next would leave the entire diner in tears, transform Sarah's life forever, and remind everyone that sometimes the most extraordinary acts of kindness come from the most unexpected places. No one could have predicted how years of small acts of compassion would lead to a moment that would change both their lives forever. The story of Sarah and Mr. Thompson isn't just about a waitress and her customer. It's about how genuine care and compassion can bridge any gap, age, background, or circumstance. It's about those precious moments when humanity shines its brightest, proving that sometimes the biggest miracles start with the smallest gestures. As we delve deeper into this remarkable story, you'll discover how a simple envelope contains something that would not only change Sarah's life, but also teach us all an unforgettable lesson about kindness, gratitude, and the extraordinary impact we can have on each other's lives. Stay with us as we unfold this touching story that reminds us all that in a world where we can be anything, being kind might just be the most powerful choice we can make. What was in that envelope? How did it change Sarah's life? And what motivated Mr. Thompson to make such a profound gesture? The answers will warm your heart and restore your faith in humanity. The morning sun streamed through the diner's windows, casting a warm glow on the worn leather booths and chrome fixtures. Regular customers paused mid-bite, their attention drawn to Table 7, where Mr. Thompson sat with the mysterious envelope placed carefully beside his coffee cup. Sarah approached with her usual warm smile, unaware that this ordinary Tuesday would become one of the most memorable days of her life. "The usual, Mr. Thompson?" she asked, reaching for her notepad. But instead of his typical breakfast order, he gently touched her hand, his eyes glistening with emotion. "Sarah, please sit with me for a moment," he said, his voice slightly trembling. The diner's usual morning clatter seemed to fade into the background as Sarah slid into the booth across from him. Over the past 5 years, their friendship had grown through countless small moments. There were mornings when Sarah would arrive at work exhausted after staying up late studying for her nursing exams, yet she never let it dim her smile. She'd share stories about her youngest daughter's first ballet recital or her teenage son's basketball games, and Mr. Thompson would listen intently, offering the same kind of thoughtful advice he once gave his students. What Sarah didn't know was that Mr. Thompson had been watching her struggle silently. He noticed how she would slip her tips into a worn envelope labeled Nursing School Fund, how she would massage her tired feet during brief breaks, and how she never complained despite the weight of her responsibilities. He saw something in her that reminded him of his late wife, the same determination, the same unwavering spirit in the face of adversity. The other regulars at the diner had witnessed their bond grow stronger with each passing year. There was the time Sarah stayed an hour after her shift to help Mr. Thompson when his wheelchair got a flat tire, or when she brought him homemade soup during a particularly harsh winter when he couldn't make it to the diner. These weren't just acts of kindness from a waitress to her customer. They were expressions of genuine care between two people who had become family. As Mr. Thompson reached for the envelope with slightly shaking hands, the other customers tried to appear busy with their meals, but their curiosity was palpable. Some had been coming to the diner long enough to remember when Sarah first started working there, how she would study medical textbooks during slow periods, highlighting pages while balancing a pot of coffee in her other hand. 5 years ago, Mr. Thompson began, his voice steady despite his evident emotion. I was ready to give up. After my stroke, after losing Claire, I didn't see much point in going on. He paused, taking a sip of water. But then I found this place. Found you. And you didn't just serve me breakfast, Sarah. You gave me back my dignity, my joy in living. Sarah's eyes welled with tears as she listened, her hand instinctively reaching across the table to steady his trembling fingers. The morning light caught the silver of his hair, reminding her of all the wisdom he had shared, all the encouragement he had given her through her struggles with school and single parenthood. The envelope sat between them, its contents still unknown, but its presence felt like a weight of possibility on the worn formica table. The other diners held their breath. Coffee cups paused midway to lips, toast growing cold on plates, as Mr. Thompson began to open the sealed envelope with deliberate care. What happened next would prove that sometimes the greatest acts of kindness come full circle, and that the bonds we forge while serving others can lead to unexpected blessings. But first, there was a story Mr. Thompson needed to share, a story that would explain why this moment had been years in the making. The morning crowd at the diner had grown unusually quiet as Mr. Thompson's weathered hands carefully opened the envelope. He pulled out a stack of papers, neatly folded, and began to tell a story that would leave everyone in the diner speechless. Before the stroke that changed his life, Mr. Thompson had been more than just a teacher. He had been an investment advisor who helped countless families secure their futures. After Claire passed, he continued, his voice soft but clear, I realized I had no one to leave my legacy to. No children, no family left. He paused, looking at Sarah with eyes full of meaning. But then life gave me a second chance at family, right here in this diner. The other customers leaned in slightly, coffee cups forgotten, as Mr. Thompson shared how he had secretly watched Sarah's dedication to her studies, her unwavering commitment to her children, and her dreams of becoming a nurse. Sarah sat perfectly still, her apron crumpled in her hands, as Mr. Thompson revealed that for the past 3 years he had been working with his old financial partners, making careful arrangements. He spoke of how Sarah's kindness had given him purpose again, how her daily acts of compassion had shown him that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the connections we choose to make. The morning sun had climbed higher now, casting long shadows across the diner's checkerboard floor. Through the windows, the world rushed by unaware of the profound moment unfolding inside. Sarah's colleague Jenny had taken over her tables, understanding instinctively that something extraordinary was happening. You see, Sarah, Mr. Thompson continued, his fingers trembling slightly as he unfolded the papers, I've watched you put aside a little money each week for nursing school, seen you struggle to balance your dreams with supporting your children. He paused, taking a deep breath. And I've seen how, despite everything, you've never lost your kindness, your grace, or your determination. The papers in his hands seemed to hold an immense weight, far beyond their physical presence. Sarah's eyes widened as she caught glimpses of official letterheads and legal terminology. Mr. Thompson had arranged something big, but what exactly was about to unfold remained a mystery that had the entire diner holding its collective breath. Before I tell you what's in these papers, Mr. Thompson said, his voice growing stronger, I want you to know something. In all my years of teaching, all my years of helping people plan their futures, I've never met anyone more deserving of a chance to fulfill their dreams than you, Sarah." The weight of his words hung in the air as he began to explain the contents of those mysterious papers. With each word, Sarah's hand moved to cover her mouth, her eyes growing wider. The other diners, who had become like extended family over the years, found themselves wiping away tears even before knowing the full extent of what was about to be revealed. What Mr. Thompson was about to share would not only change Sarah's life forever, but would also remind everyone present that sometimes the most extraordinary acts of kindness come from years of quiet observation, careful planning, and a heart that recognizes true worth. As he prepared to reveal his surprise, the atmosphere in the diner crackled with anticipation, every person present knowing they were about to witness something remarkable. The papers trembled in Mr. Thompson's hands as he prepared to share their contents, his next words poised to transform an ordinary morning into a moment that would be remembered forever. What he was about to reveal would prove that sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped not in fancy paper, but in simple manila envelopes carried by hands that have spent years preparing for just the right moment. "Sarah," Mr. Thompson began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, "these papers represent more than just a gift. They're an investment in someone who has shown me what true kindness means." He slid the first document across the table, and Sarah's hands trembled as she read the contents. It was a fully paid scholarship to complete her nursing degree at the state's top medical institution, covering not just tuition, but all related expenses. But before Sarah could fully process this life-changing news, Mr. Thompson held up his hand, indicating there was more. "When I was an investment advisor," he continued, "I learned that true security comes from planning for the future." He pulled out a second document, this one bearing the letterhead of a prestigious local hospital. "I spoke with some old colleagues who now sit on the hospital board. They've agreed to offer you a guaranteed position in their pediatric unit once you complete your degree." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she tried to comprehend the magnitude of these gifts. The other diners, who had become invested in this unfolding story, dabbed at their own eyes with napkins and paper towels. But Mr. Thompson wasn't finished. There was still one more paper in his hands, and this one seemed to make him particularly emotional. "However," he said, his voice catching slightly, "there's something else you need to know." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Last month, I received some news from my doctors." The atmosphere in the diner shifted, tension building as he continued. "They've discovered that my condition is progressing faster than expected. I may not be able to continue coming to the diner much longer." Sarah reached across the table, gripping his hand tightly, her earlier joy now mixed with concern. But Mr. Thompson smiled, a peaceful expression crossing his face. "That's why timing is so important, and why there's one more thing we need to discuss." He lifted the final document, its official seal catching the morning light. The other customers watched as Mr. Thompson explained how, over the past year, he had been working with his lawyers to arrange something unprecedented. This wasn't just about Sarah's education or career. It was about creating a legacy that would impact generations to come. The final paper he held would reveal a connection between them that would extend far beyond their morning conversations over coffee. Jenny, Sarah's colleague, had stopped pretending to wipe down nearby tables, now openly watching with the rest of the morning crowd. The usual breakfast rush had slowed to a standstill, as if the whole diner collectively held its breath. Even the cook had emerged from the kitchen, sensing that history was being made at table 7. Mr. Thompson's hands shook slightly as he prepared to share the contents of the final document. "Sarah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "what I'm about to show you isn't just about securing your future or thanking you for your kindness. It's about making sure that the spirit of compassion you've shown me continues to touch lives long after both of us are gone." The document he held represented something far more significant than anyone in the diner could have imagined. As he began to explain its contents, Sarah's expression shifted from gratitude to disbelief, then to something deeper, a realization that her life was about to change in ways she never could have dreamed possible. The morning sun continued to stream through the windows, illuminating this moment when ordinary kindness was about to be met with extraordinary grace. What Mr. Thompson revealed next would not only transform Sarah's life, but would create ripples of change that would touch countless others in their community. The final piece of his plan was about to unfold, proving that sometimes the greatest acts of kindness come with responsibilities and opportunities that extend far beyond our immediate circumstances. "Sarah," Mr. Thompson said, his voice growing stronger as he held up the final document, "this paper represents my entire investment portfolio and property holdings." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I've established a foundation, and I'm naming you not just as a beneficiary, but as its director. The foundation will provide scholarships for single parents pursuing careers in healthcare, just like you." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth as she realized the magnitude of what she was hearing. The foundation was worth over $2 million, carefully invested and structured to provide ongoing support for generations to come. But there was more to this gift than just the money. It came with a purpose, a mission that aligned perfectly with Sarah's heart for helping others. "But why me?" Sarah managed to whisper, her voice thick with emotion. Mr. Thompson smiled, the kind of smile that carried years of wisdom behind it. "Because you showed me that true wealth isn't about money. It's about how we touch other people's lives. Every day, I watched you encourage other customers, share your tips with new waitresses struggling to make ends meet, and never lose your compassion despite your own challenges." The diner had fallen completely silent, every person present understanding they were witnessing something extraordinary. Even the morning traffic outside seemed to have hushed. Mr. Thompson reached across the table, taking Sarah's hands in his. "There's one more thing," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I've purchased this diner." A collective gasp rippled through the room. The old diner, with its worn booths and familiar smells, had been up for sale for months, its future uncertain. "This place," Mr. Thompson continued, "will be transformed into a community center during off hours, offering free classes and support groups for single parents pursuing education. And I want you to help run it, alongside your nursing career." Tears streamed freely down Sarah's face as the full impact of these revelations hit her. Not only would she be able to pursue her dreams of becoming a nurse, but she would also have the means to help others like her achieve their dreams. The diner, this place that had brought them together, would become a beacon of hope for others facing similar struggles. But Mr. Thompson wasn't quite finished. With slightly shaking hands, he pulled out one final envelope, smaller than the others. "And this," he said softly, "this is personal." Inside was a letter, dated several months ago. "My doctors give me about 6 months," he explained gently, "and I want to spend them teaching you everything I know about running the foundation and the community center. You're not just getting a gift, Sarah. You're receiving a legacy to carry forward." The other customers, many of them regulars who had watched this friendship bloom over the years, were openly crying now. Jenny, the other waitress, had brought over tissues, distributing them quietly among the emotional observers. The cook had emerged from the kitchen again, his usual stern expression softened by tears. Sarah stood up, walked around the table, and did something she had never done before. She hugged Mr. Thompson. "You've given me so much more than money," she whispered. "You've given me a chance to make a difference, just like you have." Mr. Thompson smiled, patting her hand. "No, Sarah. You're the one who made the difference. I just had the means to help you do more of what you were already doing, changing lives with kindness." He looked around the diner, at the familiar faces that had become like family. "And now, thanks to you, this place will continue to be a home for people who need one, long after we're both gone." As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the diner's well-worn floor, the regulars began to applaud. It wasn't just applause for the generosity they had witnessed, but for the power of simple kindness to transform lives, for the beauty of unexpected friendships, and for the reminder that sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of compassion. In the months that followed that extraordinary morning at the diner, remarkable changes began to unfold. Sarah continued her morning shifts, but now she spent her afternoons with Mr. Thompson, learning about investment strategies, foundation management, and community outreach. The regulars watched with pride as she gradually transformed from their favorite waitress into a confident leader, all while maintaining the same humble kindness that had touched their lives for years. The diner itself began its subtle transformation. Evening classes started filling the space after closing time, with single parents gathering to study together while their children did homework in a newly created kids' corner. The worn booths that had witnessed countless conversations now held dreams of better futures, just as they had held Sarah's dreams all those years. Mr. Thompson kept his promise, spending his remaining months mentoring Sarah. He shared not just his business knowledge, but the wisdom gained from a lifetime of observing human nature. The true measure of wealth, he would often say, is not in what you keep, but in what you give away. Sarah absorbed every lesson, understanding that she wasn't just receiving a gift, she was accepting a sacred responsibility. The local newspaper ran a story about their unique friendship and the foundation's establishment. Soon, other businesses in the community began reaching out, offering partnerships and support. The small diner that had been a humble gathering place was becoming the heart of a movement, proving that kindness could create ripples far beyond its original source. On a crisp autumn morning, 6 months after that life-changing day, Mr. Thompson visited the diner for the last time. He sat at table 7, watched Sarah confidently directing the first foundation meeting, and smiled. That evening, surrounded by the family he had chosen, he peacefully passed away in his sleep. Sarah honored his memory by throwing herself into their shared vision. The foundation's first year saw 10 single parents receive full scholarships to pursue healthcare degrees. The diner's community center became a model for similar programs across the state. But perhaps most importantly, the spirit of kindness that had started with simple acts, cutting pancakes into bite-sized pieces, remembering how someone liked their coffee, offering a listening ear, continued to multiply. 5 years later, Sarah stands in the renovated diner, now wearing her nurse's scrubs underneath a business blazer. She splits her time between pediatric nursing and running the foundation, living proof that dreams don't have to be sacrificed. They just need someone to believe in them. Table 7 remains reserved, not with a traditional reserved sign, but with a small plaque that reads, "Where kindness creates miracles." The diner still serves the best pancakes in town, but it serves something far more valuable: hope. Every morning, people gather here not just for breakfast, but for the reminder that extraordinary things can happen in ordinary places when we choose to see the best in each other. As Sarah makes her rounds through the diner, checking on the evening study groups, she often pauses at table 7. Sometimes in the quiet moments, she can almost hear Mr. Thompson's gentle voice. Remember, Sarah, kindness isn't just about being nice. It's about recognizing the potential in others and helping them believe in it too. And so, in this small corner of Chicago, a simple story of kindness between a waitress and her customer continues to change lives. It reminds us that the smallest acts of compassion can lead to the biggest transformations, that family isn't always about blood, and that sometimes the most valuable gift we can give someone is the belief that they matter. For every person who walks through the diner's doors now, whether seeking a hot meal or a chance at a better future, they find something powerful. Proof that in a world that often feels cold and disconnected, kindness still has the power to transform lives, one cup of coffee, one conversation, one moment of compassion at a time.